evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you tonight to our June 14th, 7 p.m. commission meeting. And at this time, if you would stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please stand for 10 seconds and remember all of those who died in Uvalde, Texas, the children and the teachers. You may be seated. Dean, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner McCall,
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hausberg,
Here.
Commissioner Hanna,
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here, thank you. Our first presentation is a report of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. Sergeant, if you would like to come up. And I always like to tell everyone that the sheriff is here before the meeting, at least 15 minutes, if anyone would like to talk to him privately.
First off, let me say good evening to everybody. Sergeant Switch with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. The statistics that I'm going to present this evening are going to be from the month of May 2022. For the UCR property and person crimes for the month of May, we had 3 assaults, and through my research, they looked like they were all domestic related. We had 1 burglary, and we had 9 larcenies, which most were shoplifting. Then when we move along to arrests, you'll see that we had 21 people arrested in the city. And there were a variety of things. There were some ordinance violations, open container violations, also warrant arrests and DUIs. So I think I counted 4 DUIs in the city. Moving along, we also have the deputy activity. You'll see at the top of the list are traffic stops or traffic enforcement. So the deputies are out there. During my shift, I specifically have been asking the deputies to focus their attention a lot on pedestrian enforcement down around the corridor, 5th Avenue, and along that area down there where it seems to be the busiest, but also targeting speeding and other violations along Gulf Boulevard as well. There were a total of 4 crashes in the city, which in my opinion is actually not bad for the summer months, and they were around Whitehurst and Gulf and 5th, 1st Street, and 60 Gulf Boulevard, so it looks like the majority of them were down along that area as well. And then there were a total of 226 citations and warnings issued throughout the city. 4 of them were boating warnings, 141 combination of traffic warnings, and it looks like parking. We had 59 parking citations issued. And then we had 22 citations issued for traffic. So as you can see, the deputies are out there obviously focusing their attention throughout the city in every possible way they can. That's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions for Sergeant Swish?
Very comprehensive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for our city.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll have our report of Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue with our chief, Jeffrey Davidson. Are you going to introduce Becky? Betsy.
Good evening.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Davidson, Fire Chief. And yes, I would like to introduce Betsy McKenna. She's our newest Fire Commissioner for Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District out of Indian Rocks Beach.
Yay.
Also going to present the fire rescue data for Indian Rocks Beach for the month of May. We had 79 calls for service during the month of May. 68 of them were medical related calls. We had an average response time to your door of 4 minutes and 46 seconds. With those, we also had 4 water rescues, and we did have a near drowning. We had 68 Marine unit calls so far, and our Marine unit, Pinellas Suncoast, our Marine unit is the busiest Marine unit in the entire county, with 68 so far this year. We had the only beach launchable watercraft boat. that we can take, and we go right through the beach access when we go out from the beach. And we also have a power boat that's in the marina in Indian Rocks Beach as well. So depending on where the call is and what the nature of the call is, we'll coordinate with other agencies, but we have the fastest time onto the beach because we can bring that boat right onto the beach. So 68 of those so far this year. And 0 fatalities, thank goodness. And we also had 11 fire-related calls with an average response time of 4 minutes and 53 seconds, which is an excellent response time. And those calls included fire alarms, gas leaks, brush fire, and then your elevator rescues as well. So, thank you. Do you have any questions for me here?
Any questions
None.
for Chief Davidson? Okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
Or the red shirt and blue shirt. Hey, y'all wanna come up? I wear about 5 primary hats. I'm a father, a husband, a brother, a grandfather. My 7 grandchildren call me Pop Pop. I don't know how that started, but that's the name I'm stuck with. I have 7 grandchildren under the age of 8, 5 boys and 2 girls, all smart, talented, great children. Michelle and I spent Easter holiday with them and had them all together. At the last meeting, I was out of town and I missed the discussion y'all had about autism and autism awareness. I'm the proud grandfather of a grandson who's 8 years old that has autism. And the chief and I have been meeting since I returned, and one of the things I want to do tonight is, and I heard about this through my daughter as she's become more educated on autism and the effects of autism, was the importance of public safety response to incidents where adults and children have autism. Traditionally there's not been a lot of training in that area. So tonight I want to present on behalf of the city to the chief autism sensory kit. They'll be a bag that'll go into each vehicle. And in those kits it has noise reducing earmuffs, sensory toys, and nonverbal cue cards. And so this box is those, and then there's 5 sets of replacement materials as they go through them that they can use to replenish. And then the chief and I have been talking, and with Michelle particularly, about some future things. I'll let him get into that, but on behalf of the city, and also part of the purchase of this material is, and Lauren will send you the link, is that your guys can log on and there's free training associated with this. So we're happy to provide that to you.
Awesome, thank
It's really touching. I've been working with City Manager Greg Mims for a while on this, and this was something that we were looking to do to put sensory kits on our units. And when I got to talking to Greg, he graciously said that he would take care of it, and he did. So thank you very much. So we're going to be putting these kits on 3 of our fire trucks, and then tonight we have our district chief, Todd Best. He's in charge for a 24-hour period, right? He runs the town for 24 hours, and we're going to put one on his vehicle as well. And they're going to be used anytime we encounter an autistic or a neurodivergent customer in an emergency. And they're used to help keep them calm in a stressful situation. And in the kits, Craig already mentioned, but they have some earphones, some sunglasses, but there's also, each kit has 24 different sensory toys in there. So that's really helpful to them when they're experiencing stress, to help them to avoid a meltdown or a shutdown. And we're really thankful for that. So thank you. Also, we're going to be doing July 16th. Now this came right from Michelle and Scotty and Zachary. So I was talking to Michelle at a meeting a couple of months ago, and I had asked her if anybody had ever done an autism event here, and she said no. And I said, well, in my previous life we've done plenty of them, and it's an outstanding event. And about a few weeks later, I got a text message from someone. There was an article in the paper on how we were doing this event. So we were, I just didn't know we were doing it that soon. And, but we're actually putting that together right now. They had their first committee meeting. Mary Miller's one of our outstanding firefighters, Army veteran, current Army veteran. She's on that committee as well, and we'll be putting that together, and it's going to be on the morning of July 16th here at Indian Rocks Beach. We'll put a flyer together and get it out, but we're going to keep it to a smaller event because of the time of the year, it's busy season, and we're going to have 24 children out there of all ages, and they'll each get to paddle for at least a half an hour. And we'll rotate them through groups. We'll have plenty of volunteers out there to make sure that they're all safe. And we already have a spot reserved for Zachary, so he'll be out there with us. And we encourage you to come out and help make it a great time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. We love this. We love this, especially because we're one of the only cities that has Autism Awareness Month. So in Pinellas County, so I'm very thankful that you're doing this, and I'm definitely going. Are you guys going? We all gonna go on July 16th?
As long as I'm.
Okay, we're all gonna come.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to go to public comment. Any member of the audience may come forward, give their name and address, and state any comment or concern they may have regarding any matter over which the City Commission has control, excluding agenda items. All statements made to the City Commission shall be made to the City Commission as a whole, not directed to any individual City Commission member. And no personal or slanderous remarks shall be permitted. No speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall take place between the speaker and the City Commission. So at this time, is there anyone who'd like to come forward? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment, and I'm looking for a report of our City Attorney, Randy Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was on site yesterday meeting with the manager on various issues and some of the staff so that we can start getting some traction as we move through the summer months and advancing some of the outstanding action items we've been discussing of late, including FWC ordinance, sign ordinance, and other such things that may be discussed later on. Other than that, I am available to answer any questions you have.
Does anyone have any questions for Randy tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to the City Manager. Greg, do you have a report?
I do. The code enforcement, our part-time and full-time employee wrote 111 parking tickets for the month. So if you add the total from the sheriff's office, it's 170 parking tickets written for the month of May. 11 notices to appear, 2 code violations, and 1 courtesy letter. I also want to give you an update on the completion of some capital projects, and Dean's going to click on a couple pictures. One of the projects for the year was road reconstruction, and as a reminder, that's a complete reconstruction of our roads back down to the base and new curves. That's Bay Boulevard, and we rebuilt Bay Boulevard from 18th to 23rd. Go on the next one. Second is the complete reconstruction of the basketball court across the street. And the third that we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the last couple of weeks is the refinish and reconfiguration of the Cole Park tennis courts to accommodate 4 pickleball courts. In the previous layout, it was 2 tennis courts and 2 pickleball. Now we picked up 2 more pickleball courts. So all those capital projects are complete. In July, the baseball field will be shut down for about 30 days. This year's budget, there'll be a new backstop fence, and then we're just the time for us to annually to do a lot of work on the field itself. So you'll see that happening. On June the 24th, next Friday, a week from Friday, I'll deliver to the commission the city manager proposed budget. You'll get that proposed budget 2 weeks of the adopted budget calendar. And just as a reminder, the budget work session, or the first official meeting on the budget, will be on July the 26th at 4 p.m. But prior to the July 26th, Dan Carpenter and I will schedule meetings with each of y'all to go through the draft answer any questions, so you can look to receive the draft budget on the 24th. We're actively working on a grant application through the state of Florida for possibly additional funds for additional undergrounding of utilities on Gulf Boulevard. Dean's been working real hard on that. I can guarantee you we'll get any money out of it. You don't try, you don't get. So we're working on that. Upcoming, and we'll coordinate this with the commission, will be the installation of our 4th public art piece for the city. It will be located at the entrance to the nature preserve. The date and the time of the unveiling we'll determine that soon. We've got to do some foundation work and some other things there. That 4th piece of public art is sponsored by ATK. It's from the same company that we purchased the bronze turtle down at the Park, so we're excited about that. And I'm also working on a 5th installation, which when it's signed off on, it will be located in the front of the county park. So we're actively, along with a lot of other things, continuing the effort to put in public art. At the your next meeting in July, we need to have a work session where Civil Serve, our civil engineering firm, will come in and make a presentation to the commission on the update to the IRB stormwater master plan. Unfortunately, the agenda, in talking with the city clerk today, is pretty light. So that'll be presented at the next meeting as a work session item. And as a reminder, and when you get the proposed budget, there's a good bit of information in there, is that the city received about $2 million under the American Rescue Plan funds, and that money, through previous discussions that we have with the commission, has been earmarked for drainage improvements. So what will happen is you'll hear the presentation in July of the updated master plan. I think it was, what, 13? There's 13 projects that they've identified, which financially we can't do them all at one time. It'd be over a period of years that we would do those. But after you are presented with the updated master plan, then we'll get feedback from the commission on which of those projects, based on the money that we have, you want to pursue. And one of the things that we'll do is that when you look at the 5-year capital plan, there's a line item in there for every year for, it says street reconstruction, paving, and drainage. Looking at the pretty substantial list of drainage projects that we'll need to deal with over the next several years. What we'll be able to do is leverage the money that we have in that line item every year towards a SWIFT-MODE grant, because you match, it's a 50-50 match. So we think we can leverage the money we have to not only use the $2 million that we receive from the federal government, but also to schedule and be pretty aggressive with bringing those, completing those drainage projects. So that'll be on your July meeting. The engineering firm will present it, and then we'll get some feedback from the commission about how you want to proceed. Tonight, and I know Cookie's going to ask in a few minutes, so I don't forget, we need to have a brief conversation with you tonight about the buoy ordinance that we have, the buoys that are out in the Gulf. There's an issue that the FWC brought to our attention, and there's a couple of different options that we can go with that. So unless y'all object, I'd like to add that where Dean and Randy and I can brief y'all on the issue with the buoy ordinance. So glad to be back. Hate I missed the last meeting and came back from a trip and had a pretty stiff case of COVID that lingered for about 2 weeks, to be honest with you, just in the last 4 or 5 days. And Michelle and I finally stopped coughing. So this latest strain is not, fortunately, a lot of folks are not going to the hospital, but for some reason this is not the easiest thing to get over. So, and the reason why I bring that up, I appreciate the calls and the kind words as we worked our way back to that. So I'm glad to be back, glad to be healthy, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if y'all have any for me tonight.
Any questions for Greg? Anyone? Okay. Thank you, Greg. We'll go to commissioners' reports. Jude, any comments tonight?
Again, no.
Okay. Commissioner McCall? Smiley?
I just really wanted to report, honestly, it was the first time I was able to, due to work schedules and such, to attend the flag event today. Just an amazing event. It was, Rotary did a fantastic job, and all the sponsors and everybody that came together for that. But it's really good to see the community come together. A lot of those veterans. It was nice to see them up and enjoying it. So, like I said, it was just another great event here in Indian Rocks Beach, and but that's all I got for today.
Thank you. Commissioner Hannah?
Joe took my thunder, so I have nothing.
I got nothing.
That's the easy way out.
Phil, you did
Sorry.
a bunch of pictures for
Right.
today. How does anyone see those? Are they on
They're on my
Facebook?
Facebook page, but I can put them wherever you guys want them, so. They're great. It was a great event, so
They should be
just
on the
wait.
city
We should do
Facebook.
that for the city page.
So why
It was like
don't you
Phil
send
has
them to
its own-
Lauren and we'll put them.
Okay, I'll do that, yeah. They came out well, and great event, as you said. So.
Anything else?
Mm.
No. Vice Mayor?
Well, you know, last year we did that refrigerator magnet to put in the Airbnbs, you know, to tell people how to act and what, you know, don't take your dogs on the beach. And it seems like since I've been here, people still don't understand that we don't have control over Airbnbs. So every time I see a comment, every time somebody passes me on the street, it's like, why aren't you guys doing anything about all these beach rentals? It's ruining the beach. And I really think we need to put out some factual information, since the amount of misinformation out there on that topic it's a mountain. And I see all sorts of people wanting to run for the commission to make sure that they'll get it done once they're here. And there's probably even some things that the Airbnbs of those that have never registered with the city need to know what the fines are if they don't register.
What are you proposing that you would like to do? Do you want to have a workshop? Do you want to,
No,
do
we-
you want to send out the magnet again? I mean, what are your thoughts?
You know, I think it's a little bit of everything. It's, you know, it's like more information put out on the web, on the website, on the social media page, maybe even a mailer. But something attractive enough that people will read it, so it doesn't look like a government document coming in your mailbox. You know, something that will pique their interest.
Greg, do you want to add something? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but did you want to add anything to
No,
that?
I would suggest that, you know, Denise was a huge help for us when we did the magnet.
Mhm.
Is just let Lauren and I work with Denise and we'll come up with some PR type stuff and we'll put it out.
Yeah, and even maybe like to get some legalese from Randy on
Yeah.
how that transfer of power happened and.
Well, be careful, because if you do that, it'll look too much like the government do what
I
we
was just
want
gonna
to
say,
read.
my poetry is not for mass consumption.
But let's do that, I think we
But it's
can work out something. I would not recommend a work session that was.
Okay.
I
Right.
understand
That's
it's
fine, that's fine. I was going to say, do
I
you have
have
any?
a question. So is the goal to educate the residents about the situation
Yes,
and what we can and cannot do?
that's correct.
What do you think is the best way to do that?
They're going to come out, they're going to work with the staff, she's going to work with
No,
the.
I mean, is this,
I mean, I think it's really, you know, it's got to be almost a marketing piece. We're marketing this information as a, you know, an educational piece that it's, because I want people to stop and read it.
Randy Moore, and I know we've recirculated this several times, but Randy Moore wrote a really well-written memorandum in 2016. I think we can take that memorandum and pull out like its bullet points and put things in layman's terms that,
Right.
you know, kind of like a timeline, because there's certain things that happened in 2011, and just lay out very clearly in a pretty short list of, here's the facts. And anything that you hear that's not on this facts list, somebody's just making it up, it's not there. So I think we have the information, it's just, like you said, I think it's just a matter of putting it in a format where at least the majority of people that pick that up and read it, or they see it on Facebook, or they see it on the website, or however they get it, that they can clearly start from the beginning and kind of where we are, and that's everything you need to know about it.
Yeah, I mean, we could get, Bob Griffin's kids to publish it in the beach newsletter.
Yeah, the whole influencer thing. There are a number of people in town that people listen to for better or worse.
That's right.
So if we communicate to them in this situation, perhaps they could spread the good word.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea because I was asked to go to a home on Harbor Drive where we have an influx of vacation rentals, and the 4 couples, I think one couple had been here 7 years, the rest of them had been here 4 or under, and were very unaware of the steps that we had taken. Didn't know, and they all live here full time now. And it was basically, fact finding because they did not know what we have done and where we're going with it, and how we're trying to deal with the vacation rentals in the community. So I think that's a great idea, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.
Well, and I know we're doing commission comments, but people are gonna watch this video, so can I take 2 minutes?
Sure.
And just hit some highlights?
Absolutely.
And then, we'll do, Denise can help us do a lot better job than what I'm about to do. But the bottom line of vacation rentals is that ever since the legislature in 2011, and then some further action locally took place, the city does not have the ability to regulate vacation rentals in terms of where they can go and where they can't go. There was a period during COVID where the transition from traditional residential housing in IRB slowed up like a lot of other things did. But, it's like the Wild West again now. The properties, I don't know if I can say weekly, but bi-weekly, monthly are being converted very often to vacation rentals. And the ordinance that we passed just, has just basic requirements. They have to register with the city. They have to provide us certain information about the ownership. They have to provide us information about a 24-hour on-call person that we can contact, or a neighbor. That's one reason why the little signs must be out front. And that's actively, no matter what you hear, that's actively being enforced. Mike Kelly, I know about 6 months ago, he and I, the instructions I gave him was no more warnings. When somebody comes in and they get the multi-page application, it very, very clearly lays out all the requirements. And if we get a call and somebody's not put up the sign, or they're violating the solid waste for little ordinance, there's no warnings. They just get cited. We've got a number of houses in the town now that are paying commercial rates for garbage pickup because the volume is such where it's exceeded the traditional level. And Dean has the authority through me to do that. But the basic thing is, until the legislature acts, which and I don't want to mislead anybody here, I don't see that happening. Until the legislature acts, there is nothing to stop traditional residential housing in IRB from being converted to vacation rentals. That's just fact, and don't shoot the messenger, but that's just the reality of it. And I've mentioned this in different meetings, but just to say this and then I'll close, is that the long-term effect on IRB is pretty tremendous because when they were working on the last census, the Census Bureau contracted the bulk of the census work to the University of Florida. And I received a letter where they were asking me to verify or give an opinion about what their estimated population count was for Indian Rocks Beach. And it's always, above 4,000. In fact, when I had the conversation with a PhD at University of Florida, they were trying to jump it up to like 4,600 people. And I said, well, look, before you go any further, I said, do you understand what's not only happening in our city, but other cities, that this whole vacation rental boom that's going on? And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, we're having it daily, traditional residential housing being converted to vacation rental. So therefore, our population is not going up, it's going the other way. And I said publicly before, and I'll say it again tonight, that if we're not there already, we'll be there within a year or two at the longest. When I got here, it was estimated we had, it was like 4,200, 4,300 people. In a year or two, we'll be lucky if we have half of that. Because that's how many people, that's how many properties are being converted to vacation rental. That's one of the downsides to the impact. And like I said, it's just not us, it's other cities. But that's the main thing I want to be clear about tonight. If anybody's been told anything that, by anybody that says that, just use the commission for example, that the commission by ordinance, by resolution, can call a public hearing, pass an ordinance and stop this, and by stop this I mean me buying Dean's house and turn it into vacation rental. You don't have that authority to do that anymore. That's been taken away by the state. And so therefore we left with what can we do? There's just not, there's just not a lot you can do. We had the ordinance that the commission approved a couple of years ago, whatever it was, and that does some real basic kind of cookie cutter things, but it doesn't stop it. It doesn't stop people parking cars all over their front yard, and it doesn't stop having, there's a house over on 6th Avenue that they advertise it as a wedding venue, and they claim they can sleep 20 people in it, and they probably do, but there's nothing to stop that. So, I know people continue to talk and have meetings, and all that's good. I mean, you always have to fight the fight, but that's the reality. And I don't want people to be misled that there's some magic thing that you find folks can do, because you can't. I mean, if anybody's telling anybody that they can, they don't. That's not an accurate statement. So I want to put that out tonight, and like I said, great idea. We'll be happy to work with Denise and try to get something out that everybody can try to latch onto, but that's the facts.
One of the things that I want to add too, and that I did explain to the residents that I went to their home, is we had a press conference here about a year and a half ago with all of the beach mayors, because many of them are in the same boat and are afraid that if they're not, they're going to be in the same boat with us, depending on every year the bills that are put out to see at the legislative level. And we all explained, it was on TV, the hazards of the vacation rentals and the problems that are caused by them. And we also had a reporter walk one of the neighborhoods. In fact, it was on Harbor Drive, and Jean Scott, one of our previous commissioners who is in real estate, she walked and showed a reporter the parking issues, the noise, and some of the issues that we have in Indian Rocks Beach. So we are active in trying to fight the fight, and our hands may be tied. I always say, we go down fighting, if we have to, and just, I still have hope that we're going to come up with something before this is over with. But at this time, I think it is a great idea, and Denise, just so that our residents are aware of what we can and can't do at this time. Anything else, Denise? That's it? Okay, thank you. Just two things. I wanted to remind the commission that at the end of the month, on June 29th, we will have the Barrier Island Governmental Council here, which is every month. It's in a different city, but it'll be here on Wednesday. It starts at 9 o'clock and breakfast begins at 8:30. if you would like to come, and Mike Twitty is going to be here, and he's going to be talking about the property interests throughout the county. So I think it'll be a great meeting if anyone would like to come. I also wanted to make mention of the Flag Day. We didn't have the Flag Day a couple times because of COVID, and then we've had it in here, but we had it out when we had it outside, and it was a really nice event. And I just thought it would be nice to share this one piece that about the flag, and it's important, and that its history tells the story of America itself, and it represents the freedom and the dignity and the true meaning of being an American. It has been with us through our war times, our sad times, but also in times of our greatest joys and our triumphs. And I always think that that's important to mention. I think people that are involved with the flag, especially if you're in the military, I know it was a very important part of my father's life when he was in World War II, and he made it a strong piece in my family's life. So I just wanted to add that. And with that, I am looking for additions and deletions tonight.
I'd like to add a discussion of the city's buoy ordinance.
Okay, and we will put that on other business tonight?
As long as there's consensus.
Is there
to do so.
consensus for everybody to talk about the business?
Yes.
Okay, all right, wonderful. And we'll move on to consent agenda. Item number 5, Randy, could you read?
Happily, Madam Mayor, there are 3 items on the consent agenda. Item A, approval of the May 10, 2022 regular City Commission meeting minutes. Item B, reappointment of Catherine Blankenship Alvarez to the Finance and Budget Review Committee for a 3-year term expiring May 31st, 2025. And item C, receive and file the Pinellas County Annual Report to the Floodplain Management Program for Public Information, PPI, and the Local Mitigation Strategy, LMS. These are the 3 items on the consent agenda, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We don't have any public hearings tonight, nor do we have any legislative matters, and we will just, we do not have any work sessions, so on other business, Greg, if you want to talk about the
I'll
buildings?
kick it off. The city's had a buoy ordinance for decades. It's the buoys that you see obviously out in the water in the Gulf. And I'm going to turn it over to Dean, and then Randy will have some comments at the end. But we were basically put on notice by the state that, I think it was another legislative change in like in 2009 or at some point. The state code was changed, and the permit that we hold for the buoys that we have in the Gulf of Mexico do not meet the state code. So Dean's going to talk to you about that. Really, you have 2 options, and we'll clearly have a discussion about those things. I'll stop and let Dean discuss, and then Randy.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. In 1996, the city applied for and was granted a Department of Environmental Protection permit to install waterway markers in the Gulf of Mexico. Our specific code is 7463 that talks about buoys, speed transit, and anchoring in that area. In April of this year, late April of this year, we were notified from Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission that our buoy system may not be in compliance with the new state statutes, 327-46. So in May, early May, City Manager Mims, City Attorney Mora, and myself did a conference call with FWC to see in fact what the issue was. Well, in 2009, the Florida statutes changed in regards how the cities or municipalities have the right to place waterway markers out there. And it's a restricted area is what it has to be. So in Indian Rocks Beach's case, we have 2 options. We can rescind Ordinance 591 and remove the buoys, and that would solve the issue. Secondarily to that, the city of Indian Rocks Beach could adopt a new ordinance which would designate a specific area as a swim zone and as a boated restricted area, which is allowable by Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. Okay, moving forward with that, should the city choose to designate a swim zone, there is a financial impact to that to reestablish a new permit and re-designate different types of buoys out there and replace them to the tune of about $40,000. If in fact the city commission chooses to move forward, we can work with the city attorney and draft an ordinance and bring it back to you that designates what the city wishes to have and what does not wish to have. And if that's the direction, we would request something in the fiscal year 22-23 budget to accomplish that task. And Greg has handed out several documents that show the state statutes, pictures of the buoy, our actual original permit, a draft ordinance, and so
Yeah, so the long and the short of this is, we've been put on notice that the ordinance that we have is not compliant with the state code. So the commission, the decision that you have, the two options that you have is, and one I wouldn't recommend, was you repeal your ordinance, we have no ordinance in those buoys, or you repeal the ordinance that we have and you adopt a new ordinance, and we have new language that basically says that the area inside the buoys is a no vessel zone. And in that ordinance, we have to clarify that the stand-up boards, paddle boards, certain things, you know, we'd be clear that all of it are allowed in the buoy area. And the reason why I would not recommend repealing it and not adopting one, if you think vacation rentals have been a problem, you take those buoys out and not have a restricted zone, you're gonna have 3,000 boats pull up, anchor off on the beach. So that's you know, just to get the brass tacks of it, that's what we're doing with is adopting a new ordinance. And I will just tell you, in the draft budget, in anticipation of this dealing with this issue, in the draft budget, there's a line item in the budget where we set aside money to replace the buoys in anticipation of us going that direction. But that's the gist of it. So Randy, you know.
Yeah, so what you have before you, I think, in the materials you've been provided is a shell of an ordinance, as Greg aptly stated, and at the risk of beating the dead horse here. You have mutually exclusive options. You have 3 mutually exclusive options. So up until now, you've had a no-wake zone. People are accustomed to being able to bring a motorboat into this area so long as they're not anchoring and they come in at a slow speed and they exit at a slow speed. Based on FWC's basically administrative code and the Florida statutes, you can't have that anymore where it is. You can either have no buoys, and it's, for lack of a better term, open season for all uses. Have buoys and say anything without a motor, so under power of oar or paddle or sail is permitted. Everything else with a motor, no thank you. Or you could just say this is a swim zone, a vessel exclusion zone, and those are your 3 options. Management has politely advised or encouraged the result or discourage the result of no buoys whatsoever, because you can't, and we've had, that's not coming from Manager Mims' sole preferences. Over the past 8 years or so that I've been your town attorney or your city attorney, we variously had inquiries about how do we limit fishing in relationship to our swimmers? How do we limit jet skis and other uses in relationship to our swimmers? How do we regulate all manner of activity with concerns towards the safety of our swimmers, our youth, and otherwise? And so management is proposing that you consider either a vessel exclusion zone altogether or a vessel exclusion zone for the purposes of motorboats, so that paddle boards and kayaks and the like can go through, because of the inherent harm difference from a combustion engine as opposed to human propelled speed. And so it's ultimately for you to consider, and then based on your feedback, we will bring to you an ordinance similar to what you have before you that would be clarified in line with the direction you give us. FWC will provide comments on that as well. I can tell you I'm going through this exercise in another community. At the same time, you guys are not alone. In fact, quite honestly, the genesis of this is one community had the issue come up and they said, well, what, us, what about beach A, B, C, and D? And they're like, thanks for letting us know. And so we find ourselves here to the extent, and I don't get the sense it's there, but I do want to address it because it may become a concern of the public as we have this discourse. I've heard the inquiry on this issue. Why don't we just fight it? We have the permit, why can't we, if they gave it to us, then it's ours and we should just keep doing it and that's their problem. We've talked, just like in the context of the short-term rental discussion, your limited ability to tell a superior division of government how it's going to do its business, especially where there's a statute or an administrative code on point. And also, just as in this community, a permit issued in error is an invalid permit. If you tomorrow gave somebody a permit that said, oh yeah, you can build up to 150 feet, we have no regulations on any of that, and you can build out to a zero lot line, they might get the permit, but that permit is functionally void upon issuance because it does not align with your laws in your code. And so the same is true here. And so with that, I would say our discussions with FWC have been very collaborative. So they're just trying to find compliance. At present, there's no threatened enforcement action. It's, you've been made aware of it, how are you going to handle it? And we're trying, and management has come to you with the request for some consensus direction on what an ordinance should look like that we'll bring back to you at a further reading. And again, they would still have to give it its blessing based on their code.
And one other thing, for the sake of clarity, one of the things that we handed to you, the 3 handouts, there's a section in the code, it's section 74-35D. There's a provision in the current code that if you're a property owner and you own property that abuts the beach, you can come in City Hall and get a permit to keep your boat on the beach. And I was telling you, that's not used very widely. I asked Mike Kelly to go down and take a look, because our records in City Hall have pages and pages of people at one point that had boats or not. There's 6 sailboat type boats sitting on the beach. And that's another thing is you consider what you're going to do, how you're going to deal with section 7435D, because that's going to play into what you allow to come in that zone or not. So what I'm saying is, if you don't want any vessels in there at all, we'll have to repeal section 74-35D and not allow people to have permits. And a couple just comments. I've been here, believe it or not, in July will be 10 years. There's always been confusion by people that go to the beach, sit on the beach, suntan, and have a nice day about what those buoys mean. And the voters are just as confused by it because, the people sitting on the beach, when they see a boat approach the buoys, they think, oh, that boat can't come in here. Well, that's not, it's kind of like vacation rental information. Right. That's not true. They can come in there and they're supposed to go at a slow speed. They can drop people off and then go back out. And then the boaters, they're confused by it because I think the majority assume they can't go inside the buoy, which in reality they can. So the positive of this is I think we'll wind up with an ordinance that will be a lot easier for everybody to understand because it's going to basically have to be one way or the other. But I did want to mention that there's this section 7535 that y'all need to make a decision about whether you want to try to include that. And that's what Randy was saying, there could be some language built in the...
And how many permits are out there?
There's 6 sailboats on the beach. And I can tell you, because we're on the beach every day, and Mike Kelly is out there every day, is that we've not seen any of those sailboats move. And
I was going to say that in like 20 years.
In fact, there may be out of the 6, there may be, Mike and I talking about this after, there may be out of the 6, 3 or 4 of them that are just probably abandoned, that they're not. So I think if you decided to eliminate the possibility of a beachfront property owner from securing a permit to put a boat on the beach, another thing I was going to say, another concern or another problem, this is the few that we've had down there, there's one like closer to 26 or somewhere down that way, is like particularly right now during turtle season. The turtle people don't like those being down there because turtles try to climb under them and over them and do all kinds of things. back, there's a very few, probably, we think probably some number of those are abandoned. So other than you're always gonna have somebody object, but I don't think you're gonna receive a lot of objections because, number one, only have 6, and I don't think,
Would that require them to pick those folks up and get them
Yeah.
out of there then?
yeah.
Okay.
If they have to pick them up, or we'll do something with them. And there's a provision even in the current ordinance that if they're left and they don't have a permit, that we can remove them. But I do want to be clear that that's a consideration you all have to consider, is whether you want to keep that or not.
Can you grandfather them?
Well, what we could do is, and Randy helped me with this, if you want to allow people to have, say, sailboats that don't have motors, there's a way that can be worded where you can allow that. Now, as far as the grandfathering, the problem with grandfathering, I see it, is when I asked staff to give me a list of who had permits to have boats on the beach, it was like 10 pages. It never, and there's no trigger to update permits. There's no requirement once you get one to come in every year and get one. So I don't have good records of, that's why I sent Mike down, how many do we have on the beach? So I think we're only dealing with 6 people, so I would leave that in Randy's hands. I don't know I don't know if you can do that or not, or.
Can it be done from a legal standpoint? Yes, we can definitely look into the possibility and viability of doing that. Greg aptly noted, often the challenge with grandfathering is by what objective evidence and line are we going to establish whether somebody legitimately held that permit, and who are we to say, like, I had the permit, oh, but I kept the boat in the garage, you just didn't see it, I've had it there, and I take it out from time to time, and just because nobody in the city saw it doesn't mean I didn't have it. And so you may have, to say nothing of people who may have been deceased or otherwise, and then their kids might claim that use. How do you categorically, like objectively, establish, and by what proof for administrative purposes, so you don't put Greg or worse yet, the staff at the front desk in the position of making judgment calls on people's rights or entitlements to those things under whatever ordinance or scheme we devise. So it's not that it can't be done, it can, we just have to give some real thought to what that might look like in a way that can be objectively established, where there wasn't renewals. Like right now, if we said a grandfathering program based on parking, you guys require parking permits annually with payment and replacement, you have some records to work with that we would be able to say, okay, if you haven't had a permit in the last 3 years, this seems to be distinct from my understanding, but I'm not on the administrative side.
So, let me ask the commission this. Is it the pleasure of the commission that, yes, let's adopt a new ordinance and add section 74-35 to come back at a later date?
We're going to have to do that regardless.
Yeah,
It's just
Exactly.
what is it going to look like is really what
Yeah,
we're
well,
looking for.
If we give enough direction, this is quick as we can get this drafted. It'll be back on the first
Next
available
month.
agenda.
Okay.
It may not be July, but because we've made commitments to the state that we'll move on this. So I would say, worst case, you can have a draft ordinance on the August agenda that you could, but you have to have 2 public hearings and people have plenty of opportunity to do their input. So in that scenario, you'd have a hearing in August and one in September on a new ordinance.
Joe, did you want to say something?
No, just when you're open for discussion.
Okay, well, I'm ready for discussion. First of all, I mean, are we all in agreement that we think that we should have a new ordinance? That's the first thing. Is everybody in
Yeah, I
agreement?
had
I don't think I have a
Okay.
choice, but.
Okay, all right.
What is the city's recommendation again in a nutshell?
Well, really, in my opinion, you have 2. And mine is to adopt a new ordinance. I don't think it should be a consideration to not adopt an ordinance. So then, if you adopt an ordinance, you have to decide what vessels you're going to allow to be inside the buoy area. And you either don't allow any, other than paddleboards and things like that, or you allow like non-motorized vessels. Am I right, or am I?
Yes, I would say at the risk of complicating matters, Just so that you know, because you will see this in other places, say, well, why weren't we offered that opportunity as well? You could also have vessel exclusion zones that are interrupted. You see this on Clearwater Beach, for example, where it's swim, 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 jet skis are between these orange buoys, swim, swim, swim. And so if you wanted to create kind of like alleyways or cutouts where if you're accustomed to having people come and pick up at the beach, and you feel that you're going to have a substantial segment of your community that's going to be upset by the loss of that use, that's one way communities have looked to accommodate that.
Yeah, I would not recommend.
And again, I'm making sure you as the policymakers know all your options. But basically, your managers, two base ones are exclude every kind of boat, or just exclude the ones that are operated by motor.
Yeah, so I guess that's why I'm trying to get more specific is paddleboards and sailboards and sailboats are very different. So do we have to group them together because they're not motorized?
Yes. The way that it works, it's under power of sail or is its own category. Under power of sail or paddle or it's a full category, and it doesn't really make that
So
delineation.
paddleboard, sailboat, same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
We can look to FWC to see if that distinction's been made in a way, but my understanding of it in reading the language of the code is it's A, B, or C. B is sailboats without a motor on them, understanding some people have sailboats that have motors, but a sailboat without a motor would be the same as a paddleboat.
Okay.
Joe,
Thank you.
have anything that you want to say?
I'm just my opinion on, I do agree. I mean, you can't have a free-for-all, where you'd have boats, you'd have people skiing down the beach. So obviously we need to adopt that. My personal opinion on the boat parking permit, it's not a fight that I would be, want to take up. I mean, there's no safety reason. I mean, these people can use sailboats, you know. I mean, part of living on the beach and part of owning beachfront property, that's a benefit. If I can push my Moby Cat down for my grandkids or my kids or me or whatever I want to do in the morning or evening or whatever, that's a benefit. So that particular part, I'm good with the way it reads, that they have a permit, they get a permit. We have that already in place. But sticking to the code from the state, we have to. But you're exactly right, there is a designation. It's either motor or not. Or it's either under power or not.
I do think though, out of those 6, to find out if there's any of those are abandoned,
Yeah,
so that we can
salvage
get those.
those if you can.
I mean, that is
If you can.
definitely, I think this is great,
It's almost
that
getting
we
more
can
red
do
herring.
that.
And the only comment I would have is follow up what Judge said was that if you still allow beachfront property owners to have the ability to pull a permit, number one, I think we need to update it, and there ought to be like an annual permit, and there needs to be some kind of system. Because my concern about the way this 74-35D is written, it doesn't say sailboats, it says boat. So if you adopt a new ordinance and you're gonna allow people to have sailboats with no motors, we need to update the language in here, because the way this is written, if Dane has beachfront property, this says you can get a permit for a boat, it doesn't say sailboat or anything else. So we need to make the two match if you're gonna do that.
And, excuse me, as things stand now, despite public perception, people can pull up any old thing on the beach right now.
Yeah.
As long as they do something under low to no wake.
All right. Well, this
Dean,
is-
how long does this section 7435, does that go before 1990, what is that, 96, or is that a part of that? Or is that
No.
even older?
The city adopted that code when we got the permit to establish the buoy system we have.
Okay, all right. Anything, Phil?
Couple questions. I saw that there's a piece in here where you have to have an engineering study. So this is not just a simple replacement of a buoy and what's set on that buoy? In other words, no boats or anything? Is it?
I don't know, I maybe need to look at, I don't know what you're referencing to, like engineering study. My prediction is that
Permitting and engineering.
we'd have to have a whole new permit, we'd have to receive a whole new permit from the state based on the new ordinance. And unfortunately, the buoys that we have, because of the wear and tear that's
Right.
taken, we can't just stick decals on there, they have to be painted.
No, brand new, I get
Yeah,
it.
and that's another thing is that, you know, when we wind up with the new ordinance and, you know, you only have so much room on there and then we have to figure out, if it's no vessels, period, that's easy. If it's no vessels except whatever, you know.
Motorized,
section.
yeah.
But we'll try, you know, it's hard to communicate an ordinance section on a buoy that's
Yeah.
just big around, but.
The second thought is, I understand about non-motorized and paddle boards and boats come in different sizes. Would we run into an issue if we had someone that had a rather large sailboat style thing? I mean,
Not a paddleboard.
it's not a paddle board, but it is a boat.
Yeah.
Are we concerned about a
Exactly,
certain
yeah.
size like that? I'm not a sailor.
See, that, one thing that I always, we talked about this when Randy and Dean and Mike and I met. You know, my push towards any ordinance that you adopt is the practicality of enforcing it.
Yeah,
If you make
exactly.
it too complicated, in order for Mike or a deputy to say one of the boat patrol deputies, you know, if you were to put it like a size limit, pick your size, then literally in order for me to cite somebody, we'd
You
have
have
to
to
take a
measure.
tape measure and say, your boat's 2 feet longer than what it's supposed to. And that's why it's, if you go with no motorized vessels, that you can have sailboats with some definitions, we can manage that because literally a deputy or a code enforcement person, if they're on an ATV or they walk down there or they're in a boat, they can look all the way down the beach and see what they see. Like if there's a motorized, obviously a motorized center console boat, they shouldn't be there and they're gonna be told to get out or whatever. And then if you allow sailboats, they're gonna look down the beach, and if there's a sailboat coming in or going, they know that's okay. So the simpler you make it, the easier it is for us to follow. If you start putting a lot of whereases and you can have this size and that size, that's gonna be difficult.
No, it's fine. I didn't.
And then it makes it more difficult, just more importantly for the voting public and the people that are sitting on the beach, because if we adopt a new ordinance, we have all these exceptions, then everybody will be confusing about, well, is that okay or not okay?
Okay.
Because I know from one local person that knows what the rule is, in early morning, he will go inside the buoy area to catch bait fish to go fishing. He's routinely cursed by people on the beach saying, you can't be in here, and he goes like, yeah. So as we work through this, we need to try to make it as clean as we can, because if we're just gonna have a lot of confusion about.
Has the state given us any timeline and should be adopted?
They
Now they do that.
when we had the last video call with them, they're gonna give us the time we need. Number one, and that's why I'm saying, you know, I've gained the draft budget, I've got money set aside to replace all the buoys. I've told them very clearly, look, it's obviously news to us. The commission has to adopt an ordinance, that takes 2 meetings. The new budget won't go into place until October 1st, so by the time we get a new budget, y'all adopt an ordinance, and you set the rules, and then Dean orders the new buoys, realistically, we'll be lucky if we get them up by the end of the year, particularly the way the market is right now, trying to buy anything. But, and as long as we're moving, they're gonna work with us. If we just drag, we're gonna have an issue.
Super, thank you.
Okay, so, anything else? Yes.
I actually have 2 questions. Are the buoys significantly different, the new ones? The replacement ones?
No, they'll be the same size.
Okay. And is there any way to distinguish between human-powered vessels and, let's say, wind-powered or motor-powered vessels? Like, is there any way to separate, to make that the line, that it's got to be person-powered?
Yeah, I maybe defer to Randy.
We'll have to ask them because the categories, the answer continues to be that in the categories,
Yeah.
it's just or it says under power of or sail,
Alright.
and that's category B. I'm not aware of any authority within that allows you to subdivide, but we are in regular communication with FWC's personnel. In fact, Dean was with them today to say, hey, if we went with an option that looked like that, what is another community that has a sample ordinance and what their buoys read from just on the administrative side. And so we're already engaged in those kinds of discussions. We can certainly ask them, but I would not count on it based on the way that the administrative code reads.
It's motors or no?
Yeah, it's motors, it's open season, motors, no motors.
Okay, so we have a consensus that we are going to have staff do a new ordinance concerning buoys, and they will bring it back next month. Is that consensus, everyone in favor of that?
Can I just go one step
With no
further
motors.
okay, thank you, Liz.
With
What
no motors.
if category A is
Yeah.
no vessels altogether, if category B is no motors, and category C is we don't care about buoys anymore, where are you as a body? I think it sounds like B, but I want to make sure we're clear on the record so it's not staff made this decision. This is a policy decision that comes from you folks.
Okay, and B is no motors, just so everyone knows
Buoys,
that.
no
And what would
motors,
you like
yeah.
to say that?
I just want to clarify, does C mean no paddle boards or kayaks?
No, it does not. C means it is
Wide open.
wide
Oh, so
open.
which one is there any just paddle boards and kayaks?
Again, the answer still is no.
Okay.
As far as I know.
That's all I'm.
Subject to FWC input in that regard, but I, again, would restate, that does not
Motors
seem
and
like.
motors. Thank you.
Okay,
Keep
all
it
right, so
simple.
we're on B, is everybody with B?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I would
Yes.
tell you, just with other things that are working out, it would be the August meeting instead of the July meeting. By the time we get back on the agenda.
Okay.
Because we're already into mid-June and
Yeah.
holiday and we won't be ready.
That's
And
fine.
plus we promised or made a commitment to the FWC that once we had a draft, we'd send it to them first. And y'all would want that too. It wouldn't make any sense for us to do all this, adopt an ordinance and send it to them. They go like, we don't like paragraph D and whatever, so.
Well, that was why I originally said when it was good for you to bring it back, and you said July, so.
Yeah, we won't have it ready until.
Okay, all right. All right, we're all in agreement then, and with that, is there anything else? All right, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming, we'll see you next month.
I had no idea buoys were so fast moving.
I was afraid y'all
Wait till we get to manatees, bro.
I was afraid y'all.
You didn't know.